I came back to the church almost 3 years ago.
How long had you been away from the church?
I had been away like 45 years, I'm ashamed to say.
So 45 years ago, what caused you to leave?
Disillusionment, I guess. I had been raised Catholic, and everything that was being taught as I was growing up, I ended up finding out, or I thought was a lie, because I found that everything I was being taught, that my family members was not living that way. And it blew my mind. It was not what I thought life was supposed to be. It was really strange. One Sunday morning, I got up, and something just told me, go to church. And I got up and I told my husband, I'm going to church. And he's like, what? I'm like, yeah, right? So when I was a child, I lived in Jack's Trailer Park, and I used to walk to St. Margaret's. And then after my mom moved farther out of town, I couldn't drive, of course, but I didn't go to church because we were out in nowhere land. So I just lived down the road from St. Margaret's. But instead of going to St. Margaret's, I came to St. John's. There was something in my head and there was something in my heart that was just saying, you need to go to church. You need to go to church.
Did you hear the voice?
In my head, and I felt it strongly. And I, got up and got dressed. Blew me and my husband both away. But I came to St. John's. I had only been to St. John's for the lawn party. I had never been in this church. Never. And I came here, and I heard Father Nicholas. And everything he said was like in my head. And I'm thinking, how does this man know what I've been thinking lately? And I thought it was strange, so I thought, okay, we're just going to call that a weird coincidence, although I don't believe in coincidences. And so I came back the next day, and again, you were speaking of the same stuff I had been speaking to my husband about the night before. And I'm like, okay, this is getting really scary.
What kinds of things was Father Nicholas talking about?
Everything, life in general, the way the world has become, the way we're looking at how the world is becoming. So many things that everything was like, wow, wow. And then I had asked for a confession appointment. And we scheduled an appointment, and we met outside on the grounds at a picnic table. And we ended up talking for 2 hours. And I had a list of sins 45 years long.
So what convinced you after 45 years to make a confession appointment?
You know, even though I had left the church and I had left God, God and the church never left me. Throughout those years, there were times that I would go to a Catholic church here and there and just go in for Mass and then be gone. I still said prayers. I still believed in God. I mean, my childhood upbringing was all still there, and it's amazing how after years of not doing the rosary, you can sit down and pick right back up where you left off. One of the things that you had said in one of those first couple of Masses that I listened to is you said that when you were young, that a priest told you you were going to go to hell. And then you didn't go to confession for a long time. And then when you finally did, the priest that you confessed to said that priest was wrong. He should have never told you that. And it's funny because that used to be kind of the ideology of, if you don't do it this way, you're going to go to hell. And I was afraid that after so many years of being away from the church, I was lost. It's funny because after coming back to the church and since then, I'm finding out I found something I didn't know I was missing so much. I had no idea. And it's like now I can't imagine my life without the church. God, my Savior. And He has been my Savior. I've struggled with a lot of medical problems in my life. I was not exactly a healthy child. To put it mildly, I guess I've averaged about a surgery for every year of my life. And I used to wonder, what did I do to deserve being punished like this? So to satisfy myself, I would tell myself, God doesn't punish. He is preparing me for something that's going to be way more difficult for me. And I didn't know what that was. And I kept on, and I kept on, and I have friends that talk about how I'm all the time smiling and laughing, with all your medical problems, you should be the most hateful person on earth. And I'm like, but it wouldn't change my medical situation any. I'd still have the problems, so I just look at it differently. So after I came back to the church, it was like I found me. I don't have to try to please everybody outside these doors. I don't have to have people's approval. I don't need to look for their, what's the word I'm looking for? Compliments? I don't know. I found what I needed, and what I needed all this time was Jesus. And one night, Father held a holy hour with prayer ministry, and he laid his hands on my head, and everybody else, each one at a time. I never believed in that stuff. I always thought those were like gimmicks that these preachers would use to get people in there. And about a month and a half after that prayer ministry, I got up out of my chair one night in my living room, and I started walking towards the kitchen, and I stopped and went, I'm not limping. I've walked with a limp and with a cane for almost 23 years. I wasn't limping. And I was like, no way. So then, a couple months go by. I've been blind in this eye for 15 years. And I wasn't feeling right. I took my glasses off, and I'm like, what is wrong with my eyes? Put my glasses back on, take them back off. My eye over here was the same as it always was, so I decided to cover this eye. I could see. No kidding. I jumped up off the bed, and I went into the living room as fast as I could. I told my husband, I can see. And he goes, what? I'm like, I can see. My eye doctor, he really can't explain what happened. I know what happened. I let Jesus back in my life. And I know that through Father Nicholas's hands, Jesus came to me. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Well, it's funny because I had my faith, even though I wasn't going to church. I still had my faith and my belief. But if I was to lose the sight out of this eye again, and if I couldn't walk again, at least I did for a little while, but my walking and my eye seeing isn't what fills my heart now. What fills my heart now is the gospel. And for people that have been away from the church for so long, I know what it's like to be disillusioned. And I know what it's like to hear somebody say, oh, I had this happen and this happened. Yeah. I was one of those people that say, yeah, sure, get out of here. But miracles do happen. And the church's doors are always open. And no matter how afraid somebody is to come through those doors, like I was the first day I came here, I couldn't go places by myself. But I walked into this church by myself, and I've done it every day since then. And I wouldn't change it for $1 million. I have everything I need. Since I came back to the church, people have noticed a change. Oh, yeah. I used to be the wild person behind the wheel of the car. Get out of the way! You're in a truck! Doing that kind of stuff. I have this one daughter that is one of these scientific people that don't believe. I wouldn't say she doesn't believe in God, but she thinks the Bible was only written by men. And I said, well, yeah, it was written by men, but they were told by God to say. And she has noticed a big difference in me. My grandchildren have noticed a difference. I'm a lot calmer, a whole lot calmer. When I first met Father Nicholas, he used to say, you need to learn to sit and be still and pray. And now I am able to come into the church and I can sit for an hour or two and pray by myself, something I never could have done before. And I absolutely love it. It's funny, the first couple times I tried it, even after Father Nicholas said, you need to learn to sit and be quiet, pray for an hour or whatever. I was like, I don't know if I could come up with that many things to ask God about. So I started trying it little by little. I was going out on my back patio and sitting on my swing and just sitting there praying and reading the gospel and just spending time by myself. But coming into the church, I look up at that crucifix hanging above the altar. And I remember when I first came back to the church, one of the things I did was I sat there. I was trying to pray, and I kept looking at Jesus on that cross. And I thought, how could you do that? How could you let yourself be hung up there for a bunch of ungrateful, selfish, hateful people that don't deserve his love. But then again, he did come for us sinners. He didn't come for all of those that were righteous and rich. He came for those of us that sinned, so he could save us. And I'm one of those that he has saved. And I'm glad of it.
So you spent a good amount of time in the church praying by yourself silently. And I know you've heard the Lord speak. What's your sense about why the Lord has given you these gifts of healing that he's given you? What purpose do they have?
Well, if it was up to me, I would go running down the middle of Highway 59 saying, look what God has done for me. God is still here. He's out here. He hasn't forgotten us. I know what I found coming back into the church. And I want so many people to be able to experience that. If you go into one church and you listen to the priest or whoever, and that doesn't do it for you, go to another place. Come hear Father Nicholas. You hear him talk, you won't want to go anywhere else. But if you have been in the church, or even if you haven't been in the church, and you're thinking about it, the door opens very easily. And they won't shoo you out of there saying, you can't come in here, you're a sinner, because we're all sinners. Every last one of us. At least I'm not going to pretend I'm not a sinner, because I know I am. But I'm waiting to see the light of his face, to feel like I have Jesus himself. You want to make me cry, don't you? It's not a feeling I can describe, no matter how many times I try. I can't. I'm at home. That's about the only way to describe it, is you feel like you're home. God has put something into me that I never knew I had, never knew I was capable of feeling or knowing. And I wish everyone could feel it. I really, truly do.
Do you ever get angry that God took 45 years to get you back?
You know, I've had people ask me something like that. Why wasn't I mad at God? Because throughout those years, I kept telling myself that I wasn't being punished, that I was being prepared for something else. That was how I used to justify it to myself, to make myself feel better. But if it wasn't for everything I've experienced in my life, I don't think I would be who I am today. I really don't. If there's a longing in your heart, if sometimes you feel so lost, so alone, like you don't get this world and the world don't get you, when you think there's absolutely no hope left for anything, there is hope. And that hope is right there on that altar. Come home to Jesus. He's waiting for you. Before you get to heaven.